I grew up in a house where love was loud, but only toward one person, and that person was never me. My sister Amina was the pride of the family, the daughter draped in gold, the treasure my parents showcased like some delicate heirloom. I, on the other hand, was the quiet child tucked into corners, expected to perform, expected to sacrifice, expected to be grateful for crumbs. My earliest memories were filled with watching my parents beam with pride at Amina's smallest achievements while responding to mine with bored nods or critiques disguised as advice. If she scored 90, it was brilliant. If I scored 98, they asked why it wasn't 100. If she wanted something, they bent rules and budgets to get it. If I wanted anything, it was labeled unnecessary. I grew up understanding something children should never have to learn: love in my household wasn't unconditional, it was currency. One they never spent on me. By the time I turned 15, I realized winning their approval was a game scripted for me to lose. So I built a private world instead. A world where numbers made sense, where code followed logic, where effort equaled results. I taught myself programming, cybersecurity, finance, anything that opened doors into futures far from theirs. I worked online gigs while my classmates slept. While Amina attended tuition classes in air-conditioned rooms my parents paid for, I studied under flickering lights, earning money nobody knew I had. Every rupee I saved was a quiet rebellion. Every job I completed was a brick in the wall between who I was expected to be and who I planned to become. I didn't resent hard work. I resented being invisible. Amina, meanwhile, drifted comfortably through life. She failed her first degree and my parents blamed her teachers. She married into a wealthy family and my parents spent money they didn't have to give her a lavish wedding. When her husband turned out to be a lying, irresponsible parasite, my parents pulled together every resource they could to support her while still expecting me to be understanding. I understood. All right, I understood that in their eyes. Amina's mistakes deserved sympathy while my achievements were obligations. So I built my own future in silence. Over 10 years, from 15 to 25, I turned my small side jobs into consistent income streams. Coding gigs, data analysis, freelancing, cybersecurity contracts, investments into stocks and early-stage startups. My network grew. My skills sharpened. My bank accounts multiplied. I lived modestly, spending on nothing unnecessary, pouring everything into my vision. By 23, I had built a consultation business. By 24, I had started quietly developing a cybersecurity firm concept that investors were already interested in. And by 25, after 10 years of sacrifice, I had accumulated $3.9 million, money that represented sweat, sleepless nights, and a childhood rebuilt by my own hands. And on my 25th birthday, my parents stole it. It started as an ordinary day. I finalized a preliminary investor agreement in the morning, then went home for a small birthday dinner my mother insisted upon. I agreed reluctantly. She played the guilt card masterfully. When I arrived, the decorations were too bright, the smiles too polished. My father greeted me with a stiffness that always meant he was hiding something. My mother hugged me longer than usual. Amina avoided eye contact completely. The dinner felt choreographed. My parents kept exchanging glances. Amina barely spoke. My mother fussed unnecessarily over my plate, over my shirt collar, over everything except the one thing she needed to confess. Halfway through dessert, she finally set down her spoon, reached across the table, and held my hand with trembling fingers. "Beta," she said softly, "we need to talk about something important." My heartbeat slowed. My father folded his arms, posture rigid like a man giving a verdict he believed righteous. "Today," he announced, "we made a financial decision for the good of the family." Amina's eyes flashed with guilt. My mother inhaled shakily, her voice dripping with rehearsed sorrow. "We withdrew your savings." Silence punched through my lungs. "Your sister is struggling," she continued, tears gathering like she had practiced the expression. "She needs stability. Her child needs security. You're still young. You can earn again." My father leaned forward, eyes glinting with authority he thought he possessed. "We raised you. We paid for your upbringing. Everything you have is because of us. Your success belongs to the family." Amina whispered, "I told them not to," but even she knew it was a lie. My parents looked at me expectantly, waiting for gratitude. Waiting for forgiveness. Waiting for the obedient son who always swallowed pain. But that version of me no longer existed. Instead, I felt a slow, cold smile rise inside me. Not amusement. Not shock. Recognition. This was exactly what I had prepared for. "When did you do it?" I asked calmly. My father's chest puffed with triumph. "This morning." My smile widened. They noticed. My father's expression tightened. My mother's hand slipped from mine. "Why are you smiling?" my father demanded. "Because," I replied softly, "the money you touched was never meant for you." Their faces froze. "What do you mean?" My mother whispered that I placed my phone on the table. Notifications lit up the screen, security alerts, access logs, digital signatures, trustee warnings. My father snatched the phone and paled. The account you accessed, I said quietly, was a trust account monitored for misuse. A decoy. A trap. My mother gasped. We didn't steal. We did it for family. Legally, I said, you committed fraud. Identity misuse. Unauthorized transfer of protected funds. My father sank into his chair. Amina clasped a hand over her mouth. Their world crumbled in seconds. The beauty of the trap was simple. I knew them. I knew their entitlement. I knew their greed disguised as sacrifice. I knew someday they would try to claim what I built. So 2 years prior, I created a decoy account, a trust under an external manager, with strict oversight and auto alerts. A simple transfer attempt would trigger investigation. A completed transfer would trigger reports. My real savings, my actual $3.9 million, were never in that account. The decoy only contained a placeholder sum, moved strategically for a new company verification process. They stole nothing of value. They stole a lit fuse. They panicked, of course. My mother cried hysterically. My father yelled and blamed me for setting them up. Amina begged me to stop everything from spiraling. But the damage was done. Their signatures were logged. Their IP addresses recorded. Their actions timestamped. They had implicated themselves fully. All I needed to do now was decide how far the consequences would go, and in that moment, watching them crack, watching them feel for the first time the weight they had placed on me for years, I felt something unexpected. Nothing. No rage. No vengeance. No satisfaction. Just emptiness, a confirmation that the son they expected to obey had died long before tonight. I left them there, drowning in their own fear, without promising help. That night, they called again and again. I didn't answer. The next 3 days were chaos, for them. Their accounts froze temporarily due to the flagged activity. My father's business meetings were interrupted by legal inquiries. My mother's social circle buzzed with whispers she tried desperately to silence. Amina begged me through messages to fix everything, for the sake of the family. Not a single message contained an apology. Only desperation. Only entitlement. On the 5th day, I returned to their house, not for them, but for closure. My mother rushed to me, sobbing uncontrollably, gripping my arm as if drowning. Please fix this, she cried. We didn't know. We didn't know. My father stood behind her, eyes red, pride shattered. Son, please, he muttered. They could seize our assets. They could take the house. Amina clutched her child tightly, trembling. Please help, she whispered. For a long moment, I simply looked at them, really looked at them. The parents who told me I owed them everything. The sister whose comfort always outweighed my existence. The family that traded my childhood for my silence. Then I sat down and spoke in a calm voice they had never heard from me. I'll fix everything, I said. Their expressions broke with relief. My mother thanked God. My father sighed heavily. Amina nearly cried. But, I continued, after today, you will never ask me for anything again. Not money. Not favors. Not sacrifices. Nothing. My father stiffened. You're abandoning your family? He accused. No, I said. I'm letting go of people who abandoned me a long time ago. I slid documents across the table, statements they needed to sign, admitting to unauthorized transfer by mistake, requesting dismissal of the inquiry, confirming repayment. They signed everything with trembling hands. My mother kept whispering apologies coded in fear, not remorse. My father muttered excuses. Amina cried quietly. I ignored all of it. When the signatures were complete, I gave them one last truth before leaving. The money you transferred, I said softly, is back in your account. It was never real. It was a monitored dummy fund. My mother froze. My father looked like someone had punched the air out of him. Amina covered her mouth. They stole what never belonged to them. They risked everything for nothing. I walked out of the house and out of their lives. That day, I stopped being their safety net. I stopped being their scapegoat. I stopped being invisible. I moved into a new apartment the next week. I finalized my cybersecurity company's launch. Investors signed. Contracts finalized. My real wealth remained untouched, growing quietly. My new life unfolded beautifully. And though my parents tried contacting me for weeks, apologies, excuses, attempts to restore what they destroyed, I never responded. They lost the privilege of knowing me. My last birthday with them became the day I was reborn, free of their shadows. They laughed when they stole my money. They cried when they realized the trap. They expected me to come running. Instead, I walked away forever. When I left my parents' house that evening, the sky was already turning the color of bruised gold, and the air carried a silence that felt almost ceremonial. As the door shut behind me, I felt the weight of 25 years fall away piece by piece, like iron chains snapping. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking away from home, I was walking toward freedom. I didn't turn back. I didn't analyze their tears, their fear, or their sudden realization that the child they once controlled now stood taller than the walls they built around him. I simply walked to my car, started the engine, and drove without direction, letting the night take me wherever it wanted. For the next few hours, I drove through empty streets that looked different under headlights, quieter, lonelier, but honest. Every memory of my childhood played like a series of scenes behind my eyes. Amina's birthday parties with expensive cakes while mine consisted of leftover pastries. My father praising her mediocre schoolwork, while my achievements were taken for granted. My mother telling relatives proudly that Amina is our diamond, then in the same breath saying I was the practical one, as though I was a tool, not a son. The nights I studied through fevers. The weekends I worked instead of resting. The years of feeling invisible. It amazed me how much of my life I had accepted, how much pain I had swallowed. But no more. That night, I didn't feel anger. Not even bitterness. Just a quiet, steady resolve. I had survived them. Now I would outgrow them. The next morning, I signed the final documents for my company's official launch, Nova Shield Cyber Defense. A name I had chosen long before I had the courage to separate myself from the people who resented my independence. Investors wired the first installment. My office keys were handed over by noon. My team, 3 people I trusted more than my own blood, met me in a small rented space lined with new equipment and whiteboards still smelling of factory paint. For the first time in my life, I was building something purely mine. No guilt. No fear. No obligation. The world seemed wider. But my parents didn't disappear easily from my life. Their messages continued for days, then weeks. At first, they were drenched in apology, messages from my mother filled with religious quotes, emotional pleas, and long paragraphs describing how she had panicked and acted out of motherly instinct. My father's messages were shorter, colder, fueled by bruised pride rather than regret. He accused me of exaggerating, of overreacting, of disrespecting the people who gave me everything. It was almost laughable. He spoke as though raising me fed his ego more than feeding his own child. Amina's messages were the softest, guilt-ridden, confused, pleading. She apologized repeatedly, said she never wanted them to take my money, said she felt trapped between being a mother and being a daughter. I believed she was sorry. But sorry didn't erase the years she stood silent while I was pushed to sacrifice everything for her comfort. I replied to no one. Because responding meant opening a door they no longer deserved to walk through. 2 weeks after the confrontation, my mother called from a different number. It was early morning, and I was preparing a pitch deck for an upcoming conference. I answered only because I didn't recognize the number. Her voice trembled the moment I said hello. Beta, please come home. We need you. Your father's business is suffering. People are talking. They think he committed fraud. He's losing contracts. I sat still, letting her words sink in. So this wasn't about remorse. This was about reputation. We will fix everything, she continued. Just come home. You're still our son. Still their son? Strange how I was their son only when they needed saving. When they needed money. When they needed a scapegoat. I ended the call without responding. She called again, but I blocked the number. The silence I gave them was more powerful than any revenge. But the real storm hit a month later. My father received a formal warning from one of his main clients, a government subcontractor, expressing concern about his recent flagged financial activity. The incident with the trust funds, though resolved, had left a digital footprint. His business already had a shaky foundation due to years of mismanagement and hidden loans. Now, clients were growing cautious. I heard all of this from a mutual acquaintance, not from my father. The universe had a cruel sense of symmetry. The man who once mocked my work as useless computer nonsense was now drowning because of the system I had mastered. I didn't help. I didn't hinder. I simply stayed out of their world, letting natural consequences do what I never had the chance to do growing up, teach them accountability. Meanwhile, my company flourished. Nova Shield gained traction quickly, thanks to the rising demand for cybersecurity. Within 4 months, we secured contracts with 3 mid-level corporations. My team expanded from 3 to 8 members. Investors increased funding. My income surpassed anything I had previously imagined. And on a quiet evening in my neat apartment, decorated sparsely, peacefully, exactly as I liked, I opened my banking app and saw the numbers reflecting years of sacrifice. It wasn't the money that moved me. It was the fact that every cent was mine, untouched by manipulation, untainted by guilt. And yet, despite the peace of my new chapter, my past knocked again. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. I was at my office polishing the outline for a security workshop when the receptionist called up. "There's a woman here asking for you," she said. "She says she's your sister." I closed my laptop slowly. I hadn't seen Amina in months. I told the receptionist to let her in. When Amina stepped into my office, she looked smaller than I remembered. Her shoulders curled inward, her eyes shadowed with exhaustion. Her once carefully maintained appearance now softened into something raw and real. She stood there, clutching her handbag like a lifeline. I gestured for her to sit. She hesitated, then sank into the chair as though her bones suddenly gave up. For a long moment, she said nothing. So I waited. When she finally spoke, her voice cracked. "I'm sorry. I expected tears. I expected excuses. But instead, she looked at me steadily. I'm not here because Mom and Dad sent me. I'm here because I needed to see you." She swallowed hard. "I knew they were unfair to you. I knew they treated me differently. I used to feel guilty, but I never said anything because it was easier to stay silent. And when they took your money," her voice broke. "I realized silence makes you just as guilty." I didn't know what to say. For years, Amina had been the untouchable center of our family universe. Seeing her stripped of that privilege, speaking honestly, without manipulation, without pride, felt surreal. She took a shaky breath. "They're not doing well," she whispered. "Dad's business is falling apart. Mom cries every day. They keep blaming each other, blaming everyone but themselves." Then she looked at me with a painful kind of clarity. "But I know the truth. They broke something they can't fix." She wiped her eyes. "I'm not asking you to forgive them. I'm not even asking you to forgive me. I just wanted to tell you I'm sorry. And I hope you're happy now. Truly happy." Her sincerity disarmed me more than any confrontation. When she stood to leave, she paused at the door. "One more thing," she said softly. "Your nephew, he asks about you. I show him your pictures sometimes. I tell him you're someone he should look up to." That struck deeper than anything else she said. After she left, I sat alone in my quiet office, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and closure. I didn't forgive her entirely. But I respected her honesty. It was more than my parents had ever given me. 2 months passed. My parents didn't contact me again after Amina's visit. Silence became our new relationship, a border neither side crossed. I didn't miss them. That surprised me. I had prepared my whole life for the day I would leave, thinking separation would feel like ripping out a vital organ. But instead, it felt like shedding a heavy coat I never chose to wear. My days were filled with work, progress, peace. I traveled for conferences, hired new staff, moved into a modern high-rise apartment overlooking the city skyline. Life was unfolding the way it was meant to, cleanly, steadily, without manipulation. Then, one night, as I sat by the floor-to-ceiling windows watching the city lights blink like fallen stars, a message appeared on my phone. It was from an unknown number, but I recognized the writing instantly. My father. The message was simple, only a single line: "We lost the house." I stared at the screen for a long time. Not because I was tempted to respond, but because this was the end. The end of the empire they built on favoritism. The end of the illusion of control. The end of blaming me for their failures. Losing the house meant losing their pride, their social standing, their identity. And though I felt no joy at their suffering, I felt no sorrow either. I felt free. I blocked the number. Weeks later, Amina sent me a brief update, unasked, but gentle. They had moved to a smaller rental home near her apartment. My father was searching for work. My mother had stopped attending social gatherings. They were finally facing life the way ordinary people did, with effort, humility, consequences. She didn't ask me to help them. She didn't guilt-trip me. She simply kept me informed, respecting the boundaries I had carved. For that, I appreciated her. One evening, Amina brought her son to meet me at a quiet cafe near my office. He was a bright-eyed 4-year-old, clutching a toy car and smiling shyly up at me. He didn't know anything about the family war. He only knew stories of an uncle who worked with computers that catch bad guys. He sat in my lap and told me about his school, his favorite cartoons, his dreams of becoming a pilot. When he giggled, something in my chest softened. He didn't carry the sins of the people before him. He was innocent. And I realized then that breaking away from my parents didn't mean breaking away from every connection. Some relationships could be rebuilt, just not the ones that hurt the most. Life moved forward. My company thrived. My world expanded. And the wound my parents carved into my childhood slowly scarred over. I didn't forgive them. Forgiveness was too generous a gift for people who never offered me the same grace. But I didn't hate them anymore either. Hate binds you to the past. I wanted nothing more to do with them, not their love, not their apologies, not their regrets. 1 year after my 25th birthday, the day they tried to steal my future, I stood in my company's new headquarters, a sleek building humming with energy filled with employees who trusted me with technology one had built from the ground up. And I realized something powerful: revenge hadn't freed me. Distance had. Success had. Cutting the strings they once used to control me had. The trap they fell into wasn't the decoy money. It wasn't the investigation. It wasn't the financial losses. The real trap was believing I needed them more than they needed me. The real revenge was becoming someone they could no longer manipulate, guilt trip, or break. Walking away was the final blow. Thriving was the quiet victory. And so, when I turned 26, I celebrated alone on my apartment balcony with a single slice of cake and the city glittering beneath me. No forced family dinner. No false affection. Just peace. The kind of peace I had built myself. The kind of peace nobody could steal. On my 25th birthday, my parents withdrew $3.9 million that I saved. But they fell into my trap. And losing me was the one loss they could never recover from. Thanks for watching.